Hello, welcome to your video on histograms and frequency tables. You will be able to display data using these two things. And as you can see, there is a picture of what those look like. I will get more details as we go. Vocabulary that we need to discuss. First thing is a frequency table, because you probably don't know what it is. A frequency table is a way to display data in which each piece of data, let me try that again. It lists each piece of data with the number of times it occurs, and then sometimes they're listed in intervals. So if you take a look at this example here, this right here would be the frequency table. And then if you look, it says 0 to 3, and then 4 to 7, 8 to 11, 12 to 15. Those are the intervals that you see. Most of the time they are there. Sometimes they don't have to be, though. And then the frequency is how many times that occurs. A histogram shows frequencies of data as a graph. Data is grouped into intervals. That's very key. They have to be in intervals, and the intervals have to be of equal size, and they cannot overlap each other. So if we look at this picture again, obviously this then is the histogram graph. If you look, you have your intervals listed on the bottom, and then we have graphs here. Just want to point out another example here. This one does a good job of showing you what is expected on a histogram. The bars are next to each other, okay? There's no gaps between them and they don't overlap. And then you can clearly see the intervals here. And notice in both examples that the intervals are increasing by the same amount every time. And then those intervals do not overlap either, or have spaces. Alright, we are going to talk about making a frequency table. The list that you see is the number of named stars in 34 constellations, and then we're going to make a frequency table off of that. So what you're going to do is have a table. You're going to have the first part be the interval, then you have tallies, and then you have your frequency. In this instance, you get to pick your interval. So you want to make sure you're including the smallest number and the biggest number. Smallest number is 0, biggest number is 15. So I have a range of 0 to 15. When you're making your intervals and your histogram, you have to have at minimum 3 intervals. Otherwise it doesn't count as a histogram. So we want to have at least 3. So you could go 0 to 5 and then make your interval 6 digits. I'm going to pick, we'll go 0 to 5. We'll go to 0 to 4, 0 to 3. 0 to 3. And when you're making your intervals, they have to include the largest and the smallest. It can go over. So if I don't end at 15 and I end at 16 or 20, that's okay. You just got to have something included in that last interval. 0 to 3 is the number 0, 1, 2, and 3. So I have 4 digits in my first interval, which means my next interval has to start at 4, being I'm counting by whole numbers. And then I have to have 4 digits. So 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then I have to start at 8. And then that's going to go to 11, and then start at 12, and then 15. Notice I don't overlap anything, and that I start with the next digit. As long as I'm counting whole numbers, this is fine. If you were to do fractions, you would have to, it's just a little bit trickier. So like if I went 0 to 3.5, then I'd have to start at 3.6 to go up. So you just can't have any spaces based on what you're counting by. Tallies, you're going to go through and just tally it up. So 7 fits in the second interval, 5 is in the second, 4 is in that second one, 10 is in the third one, 5, 7, 2 is up here. You're just going to tally mark it. I'll let you go ahead and do that and then show me when you're done. It looks like this. For frequency, all you do is just count up the tallies, and that's how you get your answer. The other one I want to take a look at just quickly is this one right here. When you're given intervals, you have to count by those intervals, and then you just fill in the blanks. So 5, 6, 7, 8, that happens to be an interval of 4 digits also. So my next one then starts at 9. 9, 10, 11, 12, goes to 12, then this one starts at 17, 17, 18, 19, 20 would be the interval. All right, making of a histogram is the next piece. All right, here is your frequency table from the science constellations. So I'm going to show you how you would make a histogram. So you're going to start with your intervals. Those are going to stay the same. And that goes at the bottom, and you want to include labels. So this is going to be number of stars. Okay, that's our label there. And then you want to title it, so like something like constellations. I can't spell. Let's try that again. Constellations would be the title of it. Okay. And then our interval, first one is going to be 0 to 3. Then, and that'll be the range here. Then 4 to 7 will be here. Then 8 to 11. And then lastly, 12 to 15 will be here. Okay, so now what you're going to do is this left side, the label for your y-axis is going to be frequency. And luckily for you, it'll always be frequency there when you're dealing with a histogram. And then you just go with the numbers. So interval 0 to 3 was 14. We need to have an axis here. We're going to count by ones. Good, that fits perfectly. Okay, so 0 to 3 was 14. So we go all the way up to 14 over. And then notice I'm making a bar. This is going to be shaded in. And when you're doing this at home, you can definitely use colors if you want. Make it look nice. And then 4 to 7 was an interval of 9, which is right here. The big thing that you have to remember is that your bars have to be butted up right next to each other. They have to be touching each other. Okay, there's no spaces in between. And then you have to have consistent intervals. So as long as you have those two things, that makes your graph. 7 is the next one. And notice the thickness of my graphs is staying the same. And I'm just using the grid to help me with that. But you should always have your bars with the same size. And then the last one was 4. And then very quickly at a glance, you can see that most constellations have 0 to 3 stars in one group. All right, it is your turn. You need to make a frequency table and a histogram. The part of the frequency table is given for you, and you're just going to fill it out, and then you will make a histogram off of that. Make sure when you're doing that you don't have any spaces and that you have constant intervals. Okay, those are the two big things. Go ahead and get to work on that, and then check in with me when you're done. Alright, this is what you should have come up with for a frequency table, and we will actually check your graphs in class, so make sure you have those ready to go. Thanks for watching. It is the end.